Okay, so let's start out, Jake, if you want to just kind of introduce who you are, what you do, how you help entrepreneurs and founders.
Yeah, so my name is Jake Kocher, born and raised in Austin, Texas. Started this business, Aim for Hire, which is a recruiting firm with my brother. We work almost exclusively with seed to Series C funded tech startups, helping them find talent across the org. In addition to that, we also help introduce founders to capital that are raising and typically represent VCs in their portfolio companies when they have hiring needs.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So yeah, y'all come in from a couple different angles, really helping people get the talent they need to build that business that they're aiming for. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what we're gonna do is just kind of walk through, because yeah, like as you know, those talent needs, they change as your business goes along. The talent you need at day 0 versus day 100 versus, when you're ready to really scale and launch are going to look really different. So let's kind of walk through these. We're going to frame them around our different stages of growth. And so that first one, the existential stage, is really when someone's trying to define what it is they're creating, who it is they're serving. They're kind of asking some of those questions like, who am I serving? What problem am I solving for them? Why do I want to be the one doing that? So it's really in this like imagining what business might I have? So you're probably not hiring someone at that point, but like what questions around talent should that entrepreneur be asking when they're in an existential stage?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the first one is an obvious one, and that is, am I a technical person? Typically, the best founding teams have some mixture of technical acumen and sales acumen, or operations or consulting, fill in the blank. But there's typically 2 of those buckets that need to be filled on the front end, because it's great if you can sell, but if you don't have a product, it makes it a little more challenging, and vice versa. So I think that's one question to ask. I think the second question to ask is can I do this myself, right? I think it's all about opportunity cost when it comes to hiring, because if you wait long enough and do enough stuff, you'll probably find the right person eventually, maybe. But I think, ultimately, is it a better practice for me to learn to code over 12 months or go hire somebody that is capable of doing 10x that today? And obviously you pay a premium for that, but typically it's worth it. So I think that's the second question that I would ask.
Yeah, it seems like wrapped in there when they're kind of in that existential stage too is like, how fast do I want to move? Because like you said, hey, if I want to launch this business 5 years from now, okay, well, cool. I could probably bootstrap and do a lot of my stuff along the way. But if I'm trying to get there at speed, that's going to look different, right? Is that some of that play out?
Absolutely. And I think another question would be like, where do the people that are trying to solve this problem or might be interested in solving this problem congregate? I think the best hires come through networking, because typically if you network with somebody, you build a relationship or there's some rapport, and you can get a little bit more under the hood than you can in a 60-minute video call. And especially when there's like the pressure of like, I'm employer, you're employee. And so I think that's another thing that I always encourage, like the early stage founders that maybe haven't raised capital yet but are building on an idea, is like go with like-minded people and share ideas, and also see if there's synergies between the two to maybe dive into one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. In some ways, there's almost more of a partnership versus a hiring kind of conversation at those early stages. Yeah, it's something when you're working with a founder in that type of space, are you talking to them about kind of their own superpowers? Because you kind of mentioned when you said, hey, there needs to be tech and sales acumen, kind of even some of it seems like it's identifying like, okay, well, what's my superpower? One, so I can like bring that, but then also so I almost need a not to do list, right? And I start stopping that. Is that kind of a conversation you might have with someone at that early stage even?
Absolutely. I think if you can understand your strengths, you can typically reverse engineer it and discover your weaknesses. And I think there's some data around this. I'm hesitant to speak on it without looking it up right now, but people that start businesses with multiple founders tend to do a lot better than people that start with their own solo founder. And it doesn't mean it's impossible to do it either way, but I think especially from my seat, having my brother operating with me, it's just tremendously helpful because we do have different strengths and weaknesses, and we're able to complement each other in areas that we may struggle in and actually excel because we have the other. And I think that's probably true of life in general. So those are typically the conversations I'm having. People are like, what does your network look like? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Do you know people that can plug those gaps? Are they willing to work for you, or vice versa? That type of thing.
No, that's really good. Yeah, even helping people evaluate what they already have on tap from their network. Are there some metrics that they should be thinking about at this point? Maybe like, I mean, someone I would imagine maybe like, okay, as they're planning, like, okay, how much is talent going to cost? Just as they're even imagining like what's possible and what's not. Are there other things they should be looking at numbers wise, do you think?
Yeah, I think, typically your first hire is not going to be a job posting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like typically your first hire is going to be someone that because they're going to come on for either free or a very discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gets, I won't speak to this because I'm not a venture expert, but things get different when you raise funding. And so always encourage people on the front end to build and fail before you go bring a bunch of other people into it and bring a bunch of capital into it. Because I think you'll be better off financially if you do fail or when you fail, and it doesn't mean that you're done forever, but you just make slight pivots or slight alterations. But secondarily, I think the right person who's super passionate about your vision will be able to take an ownership stake in that with you and contribute in other ways.
Yeah. So really, in a lot of ways, you're measuring alignment to a large degree.
Yes.
Really early
Yes.
part, what I hear you saying. Yeah.
Because if the first person you hire is looking for 200K, like it's not the right fit, right?
They're looking for a different job.
Exactly.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Is there any like other kind of, when they think about like, okay, what other kind of expertise or resources that they would want to be connected to at that really early existential stage? Anything from a talent standpoint that they'd want to be like, oh, I want to connect resources or these kind of people?
I think it's really beneficial, and I've been talking to a lot of founders as of late, especially with the emergence of AI and machine learning, is people that they don't have to be like crazy C-levels, but I think someone that it's like a senior developer, right? Or a senior AI engineer, like being able to employ those people as advisors is incredibly important, because I think the most common thing we see is an early stage founder going and hiring an agency to build their MVP. And it doesn't mean that I've seen people that have done a great job and it's been great. I've also seen a million other people that have paid out the wazoo only to find out the MVP doesn't work. All because they lack that technical acumen. And so I think employing advisors early on is super helpful. And you don't even necessarily have to comp them with money. You can comp them with small equity pieces. And so,
which is a great incentivizing for them to really want to help you win. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you part with a smaller amount of cash to avoid a massive train wreck, right? So I think net overall, we've seen that be the most positive.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and that also kind of leads into the next stage of discovery,